Today, we're going to be talking about the hiccups and the transitions you'll be facing when you go from a manual press to an auto press with existing artwork, or even artwork that you would have normally thought was very easy to print on a manual, and how you will end up needing to look at it when you're printing on an automatic press. Now, what we're going to talk about today is agnostic to the type of press you'll be using, but of course, we're going to be working on our 10-color Rock Automatic. And we're going to be working with this design here. Normally, if you were manually screen printing, this is a 6-screen design. And within this design, you would be able to have all kinds of flexibility to be able to flash print your white base, flash where you need to, change your color order as needed, and produce a great looking print once you're done. Of course, a 6-screen design takes a little while to print on your manual press, and that's the whole point of an auto, is that you can reach really high production rates per hour. If you've got a good team, a loader, an unloader, and somebody at the end of the dryer catching, you can easily print between 700 and 800 shirts an hour. And what business owner doesn't like those numbers? Single operators, between 300 and 500 comfortably. Again, great numbers when you're looking at a manual press and being able to do 50 pieces an hour, and your press guy is really pumping the stuff out fast. So, how exactly do we take a 6-screen design and transition it to the auto? Let's go take a look. As we're taking a look at this design, this looks like a very standard, spirit wear design for either a high school or your local college. And doing this on a manual, easy peasy. Flash every color, maybe do a little wet on wet there, here and there, depending, and then they're off and run. Well, now we need to transition that print order to the automatic. And we need to decide, by looking at the complexities of the design, what I need to do. Now, the first thing I know I need to do is I need to take my 6 screens and turn it into 7 by including a highlight white. Because again, I know that I can't do a flash print of my white base without going into multi-print mode or a revolver mode. So I now have those 7 screens. So I have 2 flashes. And again, if I'm not going into a multi-print mode, how do I break this apart? When I'm looking at my design and looking at how these colors are interacting, I see that I have 2 colors that are definitely touching. So I want to make sure that I have these 2 colors split out. I need a screen in between to help control any kind of ink spread I've got. And then of course I've got my dark gray. Doesn't really look like it's touching a whole lot. I've got, good black outlines around it. It does touch right here a little bit for the light gray, but I'm already quickly seeing a solution here. It looks like what I can do is I can print my white base, flash it, include my smoothing screen or Stampin' Eater if one came with your press, and then go through my print order of my dark gray, then my gold, then my light gray, and then my yellow. But because I need my yellow to remain really bright for this design, I have to flash after my yellow. So in this sequence, I have not yet printed my black or my highlight white, so I need to figure out how I'm going to make that work. So again, white base, flash, smoothing screen, dark gray, gold, light gray, yellow, flash. We're setting the opacity on the yellow here, and the gold is opaque enough that it's going to look good across a number of shirt colors. We picked a gold because, again, it's not a PMS color. It doesn't have a lot of translucency to it. I picked one that's a little bit more opaque and covers pretty well. But of course, I'm still going to have to work with it across all garment colors. And sometimes you get what you get. You can't make it work unless you multi-print. And that's where our discussion here comes in today. In this, using the right mesh count, laying down the right amount of ink, and printing wet on wet did give us a nice, bright looking gold color. Again, I had my print order flash after the yellow, but now I've got to print my black. So my black has to print wet on wet and my highlight white. Which one do I do first? Well, I'm not a big fan of printing wet on wet with a highlight white over a solid underbase. There's a much higher skill cap involved with that, and we're dealing with vector sharp edges. It never quite turns out the way you want it to. So my solution needs to be for this, printing the black right after the flash and then printing the highlight white right after that. Now my struggle in doing so is when that black prints, there's a chance that when it hits warm ink or is too close to it, it's gonna fuzz out on that little edge. And you can see some of that here in the fine lines of the design. So simply, we just do a little takeaway stroke, just like when you choke your white base. Choke your black just a little bit so that there's a small gap in between your colors. That way when it hits, it spreads just a little bit, looks great. And then you finish up with your highlight white. Well, wait, you say, if I'm printing my black wet on wet, what happens to fiber trap? And you're right, that is a drawback to this. This is again, is a part of that thought process of how do I take my design to the auto and print it in a way that makes me the money that I want for the return on my investment. Again, multi-print is easy. Let's just say you're running single operator, 300 pieces an hour, you're taking it easy, you're not stressing yourself out. You hit multi-print once, now you're doing 150 shirts an hour. All right, now we're gonna do that again. That 150 shirts an hour gets cut down. Now we're doing 1/3 of the volume of 300 shirts. We're now down to 100 shirts an hour. Still definitely better volume than on a manual, but not by a whole lot. If you were able to do 40 to 50 shirts an hour on the manual press, now you're doing 100 shirts an hour. So there's definitely an increase, but is it worth that $60,000 to $100,000 investment for that small an increase? So this is where juggling that art so that you can print the design better and faster becomes really important in your process of going from design to press. So now that we have the art broken down, let's show you the screens that we use, the mesh counts, the squeegee selections, and the angles used to get this print to look good. Head 1, of course, is our white base. It's a 156 mesh. Tension on this is at about 25 newtons, a little bit lower than I technically want, but totally doable. We're using a 65, 90, 65 squeegee durometer. Really nice for laying down a good white base. And of course, the angle's about 15 degrees. Now, depending on your situation and how you want to run your press, you can increase that angle or sharpen it up. It's all about the results that you get. Then we give this a good flash. We have the sensor on this flash going. It gets up to about 105 degrees. When it's at full production, you'll see spikes temp to close to about 110 degrees. That's in centigrade. After that, smoothing screen, because I'm me, I always use a smoothing screen. The first color is our dark gray. We're using the standard 75 durometer squeegee that comes with the rock press. All the other presses out there on the market also come with around a 75 durometer squeegee as a default. If you feel like changing those out to a 70, 90, 70 for doing your wet on wet work, do so. Those are a great choice. I have the angle set to about 15 degrees for all of these, and my pressure is around 40 to 50 on each print head. This first screen, the dark gray, is a 305 because I'm going to be printing wet on wet. I want to control my ink deposit. Second screen, the gold, is through a 230. I do want a slightly heavier ink deposit, and again, a 230 is about the minimum I really want to use in any kind of a wet on wet sequence. Again, using that harder squeegee to control that ink deposit and get enough so it's opaque. Light gray, 305, same setup. My yellow is through a 230. If I found that I was not getting enough coverage out of my yellow because I'm flashing out of it, I could drop this down quite a bit more if I needed to. I could go down as low as a 156. But because of the ink that I'm using and the control that I have, I'm able to get a really nice yellow deposit through a 230 mesh. And then of course the flash. This one is set to 100 degrees C. I'm using low cure inks, so those are actually gonna flash faster. So I don't need to be as high as I did for my white base. The white base was a quick white, so it's a standard cure white. So again, I wanted to have that flash a little bit hotter. And then right after the flash, because I have no cooldowns, I'm putting my black. Out of all the colors I could use, black is both a good choice and a really bad choice because that black ties everything together. If my black looks fuzzy, the whole thing looks fuzzy. and coming out right after a heat source, not the greatest solution, but it's the solution that works for this print. Putting it here, all my colors are now dry to the touch. They're not going to move, they're not going to spread out, and I can control my black again with that little choke that I gave it, using that harder squeegee, slightly sharper angle and lighter pressure. Again, it's about 15 on this, but the pressure is a little less, so it applies really sharp. This is all stuff that you'll see when we do the actual print. And then right after that, going wet on wet into the highlight white, and the highlight white is on a 305 mesh. The black was on a 230 mesh, and that 305 mesh really controls that highlight white, but still giving me enough opacity in order for that white to look nice and clean and bright. So let's see it in action. Whenever you're starting to work on your automatic press, doing your sample printing as you're sample printing, warm up the platen that you're going to be printing on, get the inks flowing properly. But when you're going to start running or do a production sample, it's important to get all your inks up to production temp and running, and then as a result, the inks that you're going to be printing, have them flowing and warmed up as well. So I've just got a simple little temperature gun. I'm checking the platen temperature. We're up at about 136 right now. The platens warm up really fast when you're working with aluminum platens. So I can start running my production test to make sure that it's good to go for production. Here in about one more print cycle, I want to make sure everything is warmed up. 2 flashes makes things go real quick. All right, platens are warm. Let's do a live strike. So we're ready to go. The print looks good. I did need to bump one screen. I have a corner of my dark gray that's wanted to creep down on me a little bit. So I probably need to look at that print head, make sure everything's tight. Pulled out the lint balls that were sticking to the back of the white base. Standard problems we're always gonna have. I've been in the industry nearly 30 years. My very first job, I can remember pulling lint balls off of the back of the screen. All right, to wrap this up, bring it all back around again. We're talking about taking a 6-color design, a 6-screen design that you would normally print on the manual, bang it out, no problems, flash whoever you want. And how do we transition these designs to an automatic press so that it looks good and you can run production numbers on? And that was us taking a 6-screen design and putting it on a 10-color press. Those 6 screens becoming 7 screens and maximizing what we can do to get the most out of this design so that we can actually run production numbers. There is no easy fix. There's always going to be a little give and take until you get up to a 12 and 14 color press where you can put in 3, maybe 4 flashes on your design. If you have the money, it's a real easy decision. If you don't have the money, this is where your expertise and your knowledge and you're leaning on others to help you is going to be really important. So that's going to do it for us today. If you liked what you saw here, hey, like and subscribe. Leave a question down below in the comments. Share with a friend. Put this in your save list so that when you are ready for an auto, you can take a look at this again. We're going to take these shirts off, load up a bunch more and run them out Thanks, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Ba 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 ba.